Hey everybody, it's Nikki Palamountain here from Dyslexia Unpuzzled here in Hawke's Bay. Welcome to our monthly podcast where we share inspiring stories of resilience, creativity and transformation from people in our community. At Dyslexia Unpuzzled, we're passionate about helping neurodiverse people and individuals and their families understand how their brains work best and how to turn learning challenges into lifelong strengths. As always, we're broadcasting on Radio Hawke's Bay, 104.7 FM and 1431 AM. Today I'm delighted to be joined by a special guest, Todd Starr, all the way from Nelson. Todd is a creative marketing strategist and entrepreneur who's built a thriving business around purpose, psychology and authenticity. Todd is proudly neurodiverse, both ADHD and dyslexic, and he's turned what were once seen as challenges into his greatest business assets. Welcome along, Todd. Lovely to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nikki. Appreciate it.
It's good to have you here. Todd, could you just start, please, by giving our listeners a quick overview of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, totally. So my name's Todd. I currently live in Nelson in the South Island of New Zealand with my partner, Hannah, of 12 years, and our two sons, Louis and Alfie. Professionally, I'm a marketing guide. I've conducted about 3,000 creative client projects over the last 12 years, and I've worked with a diverse mix of professionals from startups and SMEs and large established companies doing millions of revenue. As a business owner myself, I understand that time and mind freedom come from money. If you don't have money, then business is always hard. So most challenges that businesses face can be cured with some money, funneled into basic marketing, done really well, and that's what I do. So ultimately, I help people get clear on their business goals, create a plan that they can follow that will lead them down a path of least resistance to their personal and their professional goals in that order.
Well, that sounds really cool. Everybody sounds like they could use a Todd like you, especially when they first get started, because it's quite the journey.
It is.
Yeah. So I just checked out your bio earlier, and you grew up in Cornwall and have been open about being an undiagnosed dyslexic thinker as a child. Please, could you share with us what school was like for you and how did those experiences shape the way that you see learning today?
Yeah, I've been asked questions similar to this on a few podcasts, and I think it's very easy to have selective memory. So depending on kind of when you ask me or what periods of life you would ask me about my school kind of experience being dyslexic, the answer would probably change. So where I've got to lately is I'm grateful for the way that school played out. But for the last kind of decade, I was very resentful towards the education system and teachers and what my experience was like. It was not a fun one. And obviously I didn't fit in because of the way that I think. But I've come to terms with the fact that I can't do anything about that now. And I need to try and find a way to turn that uncomfortable period in my life into valuable lessons. I think ultimately our brains are wired to learn naturally. Our senses make us observant. Our brain decodes that information and our memory stores things that are important. So learning is learning is learning. I think it's more important to think about this in terms of teaching and teaching today. And by and large, the education system hasn't really changed for 100 years. My grandparents learned pretty much the same way that my sons are learning right now at school. So I think it wasn't a fun experience, but I'm trying to turn it into a positive one.
Oh, that's very cool. And I think you've just got to be mindful about flipping that narrative, because it's too easy to wallow in those past unpleasant experiences and almost blame that and make it an excuse or an exception. So to be able to flip that narrative and turn it into something positive is a very cool way to go, I think, anyway.
That's only recently. I certainly wallowed in it for a long time. The
Yeah.
labels that get put on you when you're a dyslexic child are very sticky and take a lot of effort to peel them off.
Yes.
And I wasn't fortunate enough to have someone like you or to have organisations like what you've set up around me to support me and guardrail me through that. So, yeah, I spent a lot of time feeling not worthy, not valuable, yeah, stupid, lazy, dumb, all the kind of things that you would expect someone going to school in the late 90s would experience. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's taken a lot of work to get to this place.
Yeah, like you say, those labels are sticky and very difficult to peel off. So, so fortunately, even though school, your attention, or even though being at school for you wasn't that much of a pleasant experiences, your creativity and your curiosity have been your strengths, correct?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay, so looking back now, how have those traits influenced the kind of thinker and business person that you've become?
Obviously, you sent me some of these questions through before, so I had a bit of time to think about these, and I think it's bigger than just the business side of things for me. Uh, When I read this question, I thought a lot about just my legacy as a person, and,
Hmm.
and legacy to me is not about monuments or headlines or awards. For me, it's about the seeds that I plant in my sons. Alfie, my youngest son, we're going through an RTLB process at the moment. He's likely dyslexic. So to me, legacy starts at home in the quiet moments where I have this incredible opportunity to program my children with the right information, with the right mindset that I think they'll need. I want them to think differently. I want them not to see the world how it is, but how it could be, because that's where creativity and real change lives. So when I think about who I am or the type of thinker I've become, I channel that through a lens of legacy. It's what I'll leave behind, and what they'll carry forward. So, yeah, I think that way of thinking and behaving as a father and as a business owner has been directly influenced by the hardships that I faced as a younger person, and it's given me a deeper, broader perspective over what matters.
Okay, that's really cool. So you've used a lot of creativity in setting yourself up in your businesses. How's that played out?
It's natural, I suppose. It's natural for me. I don't know how to answer that really. I guess I'm brave. I've got some courage, so I'll try a lot of things that most people won't, and I suppose that's looked at as creative. If it's different or novel or unusual, that gets a label of creativity. But I don't necessarily define myself as that creative. I'm just courageous, maybe, to try things that are unusual.
Right, okay, cool. Well, there you go. Courage is something, because it certainly does take courage to do that.
Yeah.
So, and people talk to me that when they have ADHD, that it's like having a million ideas racing through your head all at once. So how does that sort of play out for you as far as yeah.
Yeah, I've only just recently, 2 years ago, kind of probably been diagnosed with ADHD, and it came about because I heard a friend of mine who had has ADHD, and he said to me that he'd been given Ritalin or some kind of medication, and it wasn't until he took that he realised how loud his brain actually was. So then I started to research it a bit more, and I'm quite similar to him, so I thought maybe I have it. So yeah, I've gone through that process now, and I think the problem with ADHD and dyslexia is that they compete for my attention. It's a tricky combo to have because dyslexia generates huge waves of inspiration and ideas, and then ADHD makes me believe I can do all of them. So it's a daily grind to make decisions, sort of not what to do, but the things that I shouldn't do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I suppose those sort of conflicting voices sort of all come all at once, and yeah, and I guess you work particularly hard just to make sure that you try and, because some of your ideas will be brilliant. You think, oh yeah, no, that'd be great, and then this other one comes at, oh, that'd be awesome too. So I guess you have to rein in that energy, because otherwise you'd be on a never-ending treadmill trying to get all this stuff done.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you can go too far the other way, where maybe you think you're doing too much, so you pull back on ideas that you shouldn't be pulling back on. So it's a balancing act, and it's one that I'm slowly getting better at.
Oh, that's cool. So, dyslexic thinkers obviously see patterns and connections that others miss. So, has that helped you in your marketing and problem solving for clients?
Yeah, I think I've got a fairly lengthy answer to this, so you can sit back and relax.
That's wonderful.
I think, as you've mentioned, dyslexia makes people sort of exceptional at big picture thinking, problem solving, recognizing patterns, and non-dyslexics, by contrast from my research, lean more towards sort of sequential language-driven reasoning. When I came to terms with that, I sort of recognized that as a child I maybe seemed arrogant sometimes, because for me I was regularly stating the obvious, but I've realised in later life it wasn't obvious to others, it was obvious to me because of how I think. And obviously we live in a world shaped by neurodiversity, and I don't think you've got your Richard Bransons and main people that people think of, but I don't know whether people recognise how deep that rabbit hole goes. So Vincent Cerf was hearing impaired and had several neurodiverse traits, and he invented the internet. Right, Alexander Graham Bell, dyslexic, inventing the telephone. Then many generations later, Steve Jobs, who was dyslexic, invents the iPhone, building on previous dyslexic thinking. And the list goes on, right? Thomas Edison with the light bulb, Richard Branson, Henry Ford, John Lennon, Da Vinci, Picasso, Spielberg, Walt Disney. These are all dyslexic thinkers, right, that have shaped everything that we now consume as humans across media, entertainment, science, biology, chemistry, electricity, connectivity. It's dyslexic thinkers who shape the world, and everyone else is just living in it. So I find comfort knowing that I'm in a pretty good club of thinkers from the past, and I try and take a fearless approach to problem solving, as those guys would have. Just to be brave and courageous, but bold and committed to my ideas.
Oh, that's so cool. What a cool answer. So, yeah, neat. I just would love to figure a way that you could harness, for myself, harness that energy and that creativity and channel it where I would want it to go most, rather than, have everything pile up and try and do everything all at once. I'm sure it'll come. So I also read that you've built your business through trial, error, late nights and real world pressure, which I love. I love the way you've stated that. So, yeah, how's that been?
It's been a journey. I think how I think about that is, in business, from my experience, most businesses and most business owners have 3 speeds. They've got fifth, neutral, or reverse. Right, you're either going a million miles an hour, you're not going anywhere, or you're actually going backwards. I think in business there's a narrow path of things that you should do and a very wide path of things that you should not do. And most business owners are choosing hard work, hustle and grind over leverage. Deep down, I think they're deliberately punishing themselves by making it harder than it has to be, but that's a kind of psychology podcast we could do all on its own. I think if you don't get good advice from someone who can see your problems differently, like myself, then this mindset will deliver suboptimal outcomes for your business. What a business owner is really looking for from their business is time and mind freedom. And as I said, that comes from money, and money comes from clients, and clients buy your solution, and you market your solution to prospects. And that's why your ability to show why your product and service matters is the most important lever to pull in business. Everything flows from lead generation. So I've certainly learned this the hard way over many years of trial and error, and now businesses pay me a lot of money to learn how to do it.
Well, that's the ultimate outcome, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that obviously requires an awful lot of dedication and that self-belief and that courage, like you say, just to keep going.
Yeah, and I think in terms of self-belief, it's a never-ending battle, in my opinion. You can never really win that fight. It kind of grows and stretches around your goals, right? As a child, I didn't think I could tie my shoes. Now I have self-belief that I can tie my shoes, right?
Right.
I don't have self-belief right now that I can be a multi-millionaire, but once I've done that, then I might not believe I can run a marathon. So your self-belief is always being tested and worked like a muscle. So
Okay.
I do think it comes down to resilience, and you're going to use resilience anyway, right? Either you're
Right.
using resilience to keep pushing through hard work, or you're going to give up and fail, and then you'll have to be resilient enough to get up in the morning as a failure. So you can't choose to be resilient. These are things that human beings just have, and you have to learn how to use them.
Absolutely. So you've also described your work as being strategic, not just stylish. I really like that, actually, because you can see a lot of pretties and a lot of fluff and all that sort of stuff, but to actually get it to do the job and do the business, well, that's something different. So yeah.
I just think good marketing's boring, to be quite honest. Like, a good marketing strategy is obvious and boring and tedious and not exciting, and it's not all the fun, shiny things that you would expect. And in the early years, that probably made it difficult for me to build a client base, because I wasn't selling all the shiny toys and the trinkets that everybody else was. I was selling like grounded, rooted strategies based on psychological principles and tried and true methods that worked, and they weren't always like sexy things to sell. So I think it was tricky, but it certainly worked for me now. And ironically, that's given me a place in the market where I stand out, because I'm pretty blunt, I'm pretty direct, but I'm well experienced, so I get a bit of respect and authority that comes with my advice these days.
Oh, that's really cool. So they always say that you can't beat experience, and I think that lived experience does speak pretty much volumes. Yeah. So, well, you've just answered that question, so I've just was about
to... fluff and gimmicks one.
Yeah.
I thought about that differently, though.
Did you?
Yeah, so I think I look at myself as a pressure release valve for a business. So I can help a business owner recommit feeling confident in a new plan, and it's usually by letting go of all the things they're doing to get in their own way. And I help them to do that without feeling bad about it, right? It's kind of you don't know what you don't know thing. When I work with a client, they're always at the center of their story, and I look at myself as just a guide. I'm not the hero. My favorite thing to say to a business owner is build it and they will come. So that is true, but only if it's so good that people cannot help but tell their friends about it. Otherwise, you need to learn how to market and advertise. So yeah, I like blunt, direct advice, because I think it's the quickest pathway to the absolute truth.
Okay, very cool. So you've built a lot of businesses in your time. So as our last conversation, so can you just share how you've gone about that experience, and how your ADHD or your dyslexia has shaped you, or how you've managed to build up to where you are now and feeling comfortable that your product is actually what people really need?
I think because it's been each business and each venture has kind of been born from the previous one. So going through the business, I've constantly kind of solved a problem, and then while solving that problem in that business, I've noticed either the next problem that creates or a totally different problem I'd never considered before. So each time I see that, it's kind of sat in the back of my mind, and then as I've needed to either increase revenue or a certain product has stopped working so well, I can kind of then jump into the next logical one, right? So it's constantly, all of my businesses have been updates and reiterations of the previous one. So in the simplest way, I started as a photographer down here in Nelson, taking photos for a magazine. Then I started doing some real estate photography and noticed that lots of real estate agents weren't doing video. So then I invested in video equipment and started doing video content for them. And then I got introduced to lots of different small business owners. So then I started doing video for small business owners. And then COVID happened, and I realized lots of the customers I'd helped create video content didn't understand digital marketing. They couldn't sell things online. They didn't know how to run Facebook ads and set up websites and landing pages. So then I started a business doing that, right, to then help those clients through the next stage of the problem. And now the last 5 years I've come back full circle to more of a strategic lens. I've been hands-on all of the tools for so many businesses for so many years that I can now look at the problem before we touch anything, before we spend any money on anything, through a strategic lens, and make sure that what we do is the most important next step. And sometimes that is not content and not digital marketing. Sometimes it's just a mindset shift in the ownership, or a pivot, or partnerships that they could do. So often now I'm helping people as a consultant, and I'm not actually often on the tools these days.
It's a very cool thing, isn't it? You know, to start from, I guess, quite humble beginnings as a photographer to have evolved from seeing what's the next step, you know. And that to me is quite a skill, actually, you know, and neat to know that COVID sort of out of that has brought something productive for you.
I hate to say it, because I'm sure a lot of listeners are going to listen to this and not be happy with the statement, but COVID was the most profitable period in my business life. We made more money through COVID than I've ever made before, and I think there was something happening there, right, where businesses were fighting for survival, and they were aggressively spending money to fix problems, and we were just perfectly positioned to fix them. So yeah, COVID was a brilliant time for business for us.
Oh, that's excellent. That's what you want, isn't it? You know, so yeah, success from adversity, I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So finally, Todd, could you please just leave our listeners with one message about neurodivergence or ADHD or dyslexia and success? What would that be if you were going to leave a message for them?
So I've actually prepared something here, so I'm going to read it out to you, because I take these opportunities seriously. You never know who's going to listen to this. I've been on a bunch of podcasts, and some get tens of thousands of views and some maybe get 500, and you never really know. But I didn't want to answer this question and, you know, just off the top of the head, so I put a lot of thought into this answer. So my message to listeners at this point would be, for most of my life I've been searching for a map that didn't exist, something that could explain how my mind works like it did, why it burns so bright in some moments and why it also burns out occasionally. I needed, as a child, as a student, as a father, partner, a son and a business owner, as a human being, to stay afloat inside a system that was built for straight lines, forgetting that progress has always been made by those who can think outside the lines. But the paradox is that the very thing that hurt me is now what's equipped me to tell you this truth. The chaos that nearly killed me became a compass that points me towards clarity. What once looked like disorder was a code in my mind I just hadn't learned to read yet. My story is not one of suffering, and it isn't one really I'm not much of a self-help guide, but I do want to be a declaration in the kind of dyslexic community as a translator of how divergent minds actually work. It's important to me that every teacher who sees curiosity as defiance, every parent who feels frustration instead of seeing potential, every business owner who wants innovation but then builds cultures that punish it when it finally arrives. I'm not here to make anyone comfortable, but I am here to wake people up, because there's a generation of brilliant minds, getting a bit emotional to be honest, this is important to me. There's a generation of brilliant minds sitting in classrooms, offices and homes believing that they're broken, when in truth they're our system's greatest untapped resource. They don't need fixing, they need understanding. If I've done my job, this podcast episode will change the way that you see yourself as a dyslexic or the dyslexic people around you. Because once you understand that the world's most original minds were never out of order, you might finally realise that the minds you misunderstood might be the very ones who are there to save you.
Whoa, that is very emotional indeed, Todd. Thank you. Whoa. So, Todd, I really thank you for those words, and I'm sure our listeners as well will find some inspiration and I don't know, a way forward with those words, and I appreciate that you put the time into getting those together for us.
Yeah,
So
I think you're doing a better job there than I ever can, Nikki, in terms of helping people come to terms with how they think and see their gift and potential.
oh, it's just really exciting when you see people and they realise that they're not actually broken and that there's nothing wrong with them and they can learn perfectly well. It's just so exciting to see that. I suppose it's almost metamorphosis or evolution. They just, become a different being. So, and it's very rewarding work.
Yep.
So, thank you, and thank you so much, Todd, for joining me today and joining us today and our listeners, and for sharing your story. So honestly, I'm still emotional. Your journey really highlights how neurodivergent people and neurodiversities aren't just challenges, they're different ways of thinking that can lead to incredible creativity, problem solving and purpose when they're understood and supported. To our listeners, if anything in today's conversation has resonated with you, or if you'd like to learn more about supporting someone with neurodiversity, please feel free to get in touch with me or with Todd. Todd, would you like to throw your details out to our listeners, please?
Yeah, my email is just info@toddstar.co.nz, 2 Ds and 2 Rs, if anyone wanted to reach out. But I'm mostly active on LinkedIn, so you can just search Todd Starr and see a handsome photo of me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely, and handsome it is indeed. So, or you can email me at dyslexiaunpuzzled@gmail.com. I'm on socials under either Dyslexia Unpuzzled or LinkedIn and Instagram under Nikki Palamountain. Thank you so very much, listeners, for tuning in today into Radio Hawke's Bay, 104.7 FM and 1431 AM. If you miss part of the program or want to share it with others, it will replay on Tuesday afternoons at 12 o'clock PM. Thanks again for listening. Thank you, Todd, for joining us today. And we'll catch up with you again, listeners, next time. Ngā mihi nui, Nikki.